everyone, and welcome to Afternoon Discord and Delight. And today we are going to be discussing the lovely JJ Star Trek movies with oh my god, I did it right automatically. Awesome. MB Geek is my guest today, and the ambassador is supposed to make an appearance. And whenever he wants to make a dramatic entrance, I'm sure he will bless our presence. But yep, that's what we're doing today. And woohoo! Oh my god! Yes, I did this. I was not forced to do this. There wasn't. No one forced me to do this. I made myself do this. Yeah.
Nothing like a little self-motivation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, right? Like, yeah. And yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna greet the chat. Hello, let me see. Loki and Lady of Mist, Robert Pearson, Darth Haster, Dave G Sound, Purple Valkyrie is here. Hello. Dun, 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 dun,
Jeff B.
Yes, Jeff B is here. You have another tab open that actually shows like the stream itself.
No, I don't. No, I'm currently on my POS laptop. I've got to work on getting a new laptop and doing some upgrades, but eventually I need to get a desktop, and because I can put a desktop together myself.
All right, that should be better. I realized that apparently I had smudged my. I'm using my built-in webcam, so I was wondering why I was having lens flares. I almost kept it for the aesthetic of the movie that we're going to be talking about, but it was bothering me. And having watched the 2009 Star Trek last night, I didn't realize how many lens flares there were in that movie until like I sat down. I was going to make a counter, but I actually lost count twice, and I gave up. So, you're good. You're good. Let me see who else is here. Sammy's here. Hello. Dun, dun, dun. Chris Persia, my number one, is in the house. And Derek. Hello, Derek. Who was in fact first, and that must be noted because that is a very important thing.
Sorry, my dog was barking at the door.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Totally fine. I said if like people like Gary have problems with their dogs barking, I think that pretty much like is fine for everybody to have that problem. There was a movie. Yeah, there was. Yeah, I really didn't notice it, I guess, when I first saw it. It was, wow, there's a lot. Good Lord, there's a lot. Oh, and also something I wanted to address. So anyone who saw me go live earlier, let me explain something to you. On StreamYards, you can go to YouTube through StreamYards, and you can click your little avatar icon button, and it drops down, and you go view on YouTube. And instead of just going to YouTube, which is what I should be doing, I don't know why I do it this way, but that's how I get it, so I can like share and throw my link out on Twitter. Well, I hit go live instead, and so all of a sudden I'm live, and I was like, oh, I'm not prepared at all for this. So that's what that was about. I already deleted that stream because that was awful. So just to let everyone know, that's why I went live magically earlier, because this is a professional. This is I'm a professional. All right, this is a professional environment. And yep. Is anyone else getting ads? You shouldn't be getting ads on my videos. I'm not monetized. So, and if they are putting ads on my videos, then
Yo, where's the money?
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Oh yeah. So I was I was set out yesterday. I even tweeted about it. Not that I expect everyone to see everything that I tweet, because no. I'm not that important. No one's that important for everyone to memorize what everyone tweets. But I tweeted out yesterday, and I was bound and determined. I'm gonna watch all 3 of these movies to get ready for this stream. That did not happen. That didn't happen. I tried. I got through the first one, and I looked at Into Darkness because I had it up and ready, and I was just like, no, no, ow, no, I can't do this. Oh hell, I can't do it because I know what happens in that movie. We all do, They butcher a Wrath of Khan, the Wrath of Khan, in that movie, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite Star Trek movie, and I didn't have the heart to make myself do that. It was difficult enough to make myself do the 2009 one, which isn't as bad as I think people wanted it to be. Personally, I know there's some people out there that really, really hate it, that call it the end of Star Trek. I still say that it's Into Darkness that killed Star Trek, and well, then you have stuff like STD and Picard that just continue to.
Yeah, if you guys were saying Into Darkness killed Star Trek, what the hell is STD and STP? Other than one is a disease and the other is something you wipe your ass with.
Yeah, that's what. Oh, hey. All right. Hold on a second, guys. Hello, Ambassador.
Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay. I just got home a few minutes ago. Had to get cleaned up and get some groceries down my throat. So
you're totally fine. We're just kind of rolling into this. Kind of did a little bit of. I was telling everyone that even though I'd set out to watch all 3 of them, I only got through one. I was blinded by the lens flare, so I was just about to start talking about the 2009 one. If y'all wanted to jump in. So
awesome.
I actually did notes. Yeah, I went all out for this sucker. So what's funny is my first critique of the original of the 2009 Star Trek actually isn't even. We haven't even gotten to the movie portion. It's the poster.
Yeah.
I have a critique of the poster. I do not like that it's Kirk, Spock, and Uhura. I don't know. I understand Uhura's in the movie more, but it's like the Trinity is Kirk, Spock,
Spock, McCoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Bones, McCoy, whichever way you.
Same person. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, and so that's my first big critique. I don't like that. I would change. That would be my first change to it,
And honestly, I can understand that. I think the reason they did that, they made that move with the marketing, is this movie is very much focused around the relationship between Spock, Uhura, and Kirk to an extent.
No, I understand.
So I can understand as a purist, as a Star Trek purist. Now, I myself, I'm not a Trekkie. I like Trek. Don't misunderstand me. I love Trek, but I'm not a dyed in the wool Trekkie. But I can understand everything, how you want to keep certain types of continuity within the universe and everything. And what JJ did, I'm not saying was bad on that particular move, but at the same time, I can understand where a purist would find an issue with it.
It's one of those little things, and I come from, it's kind of an interesting point of view I come from, because this was my introduction to Star Trek, was the 2009 movie. And the more I learned about it, is even having not watched the show, I watched the movies first. I didn't even know there was a show until after I'd watched the movies. But it's like, even then, it's like, well, clearly it's based off this one, this kind of these 3 main characters. And I understand in this one, technically Uhura is the 3rd main character. Bones really isn't in this movie very much. But compared to Uhura, Uhura's in this movie way more. I just think it's, you want to market it to both the old and the new. And that was a marketing choice that I feel like kind of didn't quite, like, you were almost there, and you didn't quite get there, you know? It's like, yeah, you're almost there, but it's a little detail, and I used to have the 2009 Star Trek poster, so like, I before I switched it out, I actually swapped it out for Raiders.
Ooh.
Yeah, and
Nice.
the original Raiders poster, not where it says Indiana Jones, but
Right on.
like the original one, because I specifically wanted that one, and so I it's just something that's always bothered me. Like, yeah, I didn't like that part, but oh, ha ha ha.
Chris Prodigy, good afternoon, sir. Good to see you.
I think it was a little more than 25% personally.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I remember going to see Star Trek 09 and everything in theaters and everything. And me and my mom, we went. Everything because we still kept in touch. Yeah, that one, 09. And we walked out and I asked my mom, because my mom grew up watching Star Trek to an extent and everything. I mean, she wasn't like a dyed-in-the-wool nerd, or, well, she kind of is, or anything. But I asked her, I was like, what did you think? She's like, it was okay. She's like, it was good. It was entertaining. But she's like, my mom grew up watching TOS. And we did watch TNG to a point and everything for a while. And she's like, it was okay. She's like, it was good to see Spock again and everything.
Yeah.
And for me, yeah, I mean, I appreciate the fact that they had Larry Nimoy come back to reprise his role as old Spock and everything. And they said this in an alternate timeline. So
yeah, I thought that was a brilliant move. Having rewatched it, I think that was one of the smartest moves they made in that movie.
Yeah. So honestly, for me, 09, if you're not a super familiar Star Trek person and you just go into this like as a new fan, you're going to enjoy it. But for a lot of people who are familiar with the world and with the lore and all the other properties that have come out in terms of Star Trek, like TOS, like TNG, Deep Space Nine, and all that, you might be like, what's going on here?
Yeah. They're having, I haven't watched it in years. And so it's very interesting. Introduced to Star Trek in this movie. I watched all the TOS movies, and then going and watching the original series itself, and now coming back and watching the 09 movie. It's very interesting to see what's changed. My points of view and stuff. It's
so
like,
I kind of want to, if you have a second, I kind of want to chime in on that one. See, unlike the ambassador, I am a Trekkie. I think it's yeah, just a little bit.
No,
just
really?
small.
You don't say.
Oh my god! So shocked.
Well, here's why I don't have the big issue with the Star Trek reboots. I don't hold the hate I hold for STD and STP, but that's a topic later. But so I grew up, my grandmother was a geek before there was a term for that term. And all my collections of movies, classic horror, classic science, my grandmother had all 79 VHS tapes from The Cage all the way to the Turnabout Intruder.
That's beautiful.
And so I would be up in upstairs, we'd watch Star Trek The Next Generation, and I was learning about that. And then I would go downstairs to the basement, pop in a VHS tape, and I'm watching classic Star Trek, and I'm kind of intrigued on the differences between the two of them. And my grandmother and my father, I'm asking them both, I'm asking them questions. I'm like, well, why is this going on? Why is Picard doing this and Kirk does this? And my grandmother hated Picard. She hated Picard. I mean, I'm telling you.
Like the character period, or like the show?
The character, yes. No, the character. No, she
hated the show.
No, she was 100% Kirk. She was straight up Kirk.
I get that. I get it.
She flat out said to me, she goes, you know what would happen if those two got into a fight? Picard would be trying to talk his way out of it while Kirk's beating the shit out of him. And my grandmother was not shy about cussing. So, but when it came to, so I've grown up on Star Trek way more than I grew up on Star Wars. I didn't get into Star Wars until I was almost in my 20s. But Star Trek has been a fixture in my life since I can remember. So when I knew after Enterprise, which for those who don't know, I binged TNG, DS9, VOI, ENT. I finished ENT last week. Now I'm on TOS because I like to save the original for last.
That's for
So
last.
it was very intriguing to go through it
Mm-hmm.
as someone who hadn't watched all that stuff in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, catch an episode here and there, but then to binge it and start watching it as someone who's 40 years old, retired military, done service and stuff, I started getting a lot of different views on it. But when it comes to and time travel and alternate universes are always a fixture in Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to this, and I went and saw it, and I remember the trailer. I remember it said, "This ain't your daddy's Star Trek," and I said, "I don't know," but I said I'll give it a try. And like I said, it's the only other Star Trek movie I've ever seen in theater. I saw Star Trek 6 with my father, and I think that was the only movie my father and I ever went to together. And I saw Star Trek 2009 with my wife. And in truth, I enjoyed it for what it is. I enjoy actually all three of them. I'm not the biggest fan of Wrath of Khan like a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of Benedict Cumberbatch. So
yeah, me
I'm
too.
I'm a little more biased. I mean, I could watch Sherlock all day long.
I love me some Benedict Cumberbatch, man.
So, and then Star Trek Beyond had freaking Idris Elba in it. I'm like, did you just want my money? All you had to do was say Idris Elba was going to be in it. And I was like, here's my money.
Oh, he was in it. Oh, I totally forgot about that. Oh, yeah.
Yes, he was.
Oh, yeah. God damn.
And I thought for what they did, they were smart to do it in an alternate universe. Mm-hmm. I love seeing Leonard Nimoy come back.
Yes.
And I actually...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when it comes to the end of the last Star Trek movie, Beyond, there's that little scene at the end, because I don't think I'll be on here for the whole thing, where Spock, Zachary Quinton Spock, gets a photo of all of the original TOS cast, and that was a prop photo. That was a prop photo from way back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I thought that actually, I said, I don't think they're going to make a fourth one. I said, but I think that's actually a fitting into this 3-part series.
Yeah, I really 3 I think ended that was well. That was good. No, I agree. Third one I think.
Do I like the fact that they tried to make Star Trek more Star Wars? No, that part did bother me. Mm-hmm. But I did overall enjoy the movie. And one of the things I know a lot of people had a problem with was the whole thing with Uhura and Spock. And I kind of pointed out, I said, if you watch if you actually watch earlier TOS episodes, you'll notice that he actually does smile at her. Even though he's logical, but there's a couple of times, like he's Charlie X. Actually, I'll say it right now, Charlie X. He's playing his little Vulcan thing. I never did learn what it was called. I probably have forgotten. And she starts singing. She's like, I'll stop. And he just kind of looks at her, smiles, and starts kind of playing. It's like she was the only one he ever really smiled at or gave that kind of an emotion to outside of watching The Cage. So I think there was, I always kind of said that actually added to my belief that maybe that was something that was subtle. They decided not to go with it. And maybe it was something noticed, and that's why it was put in, and that's why they were together.
I see. I hated it. I hated the Spock Uhura thing. It just, they went too hard with it. If it was subtle, I might have gotten behind it, but it wasn't like at all. And it was like, oh, maybe not. I still didn't watch it. Like, it makes me cringe. Like, I'm not a fan of it at all. And I know it gets more, it gets more so like in the other movies. And like by the third one, it's like they're like engaged or something. I'm just like, okay. Back up. You based all of this off a fucking TOS episode that she had a crush on him? And he was kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's like Chapel also had a crush on him. You didn't do anything with that, but all right. I don't think Chapel existed in this universe.
No, she is mentioned in, I think, Into Darkness.
Like once, yeah, but she doesn't she's not like there.
No, she's never seen, but she is mentioned. She's mentioned by the baby mama. Kirk's future, the one who his son,
Carol?
the mother of David.
Is that Carol? Is that her name?
Carol, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Carol Marcus.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol Marcus. Yeah, because eventually, some point, in Wrath of Khan, they talk about, he did have a son named David. And, I could actually, I got to honestly believe I could really buy into Kirk. I could really buy into her telling him, I don't want you a part of his life. And Kirk being like, I get it. And walking away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's the, I can't get behind the Spock and her. I think it's too overt. I think it's too big. If they would have had more in TOS, I could have gotten behind it. But it's kind of like, I didn't even like it when I hadn't even watched the movies or all the movies or all the, all the TOS. Yeah, I didn't even like it back then. It was kind of just like, it feels forced.
Well, and here's the other thing in terms of Spock and Uhura. They were trying to go off of a precedent that had been set previously in terms of Spock's father, Sarek, because Sarek had both of his wives except for Spock's mother.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're thinking of Spock.
That's right, Cybok.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. Both of Sarek's wives were human. Spock's mother, and then I think Sarek's second wife, which we meet in TNG, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you do.
But the thing is, the Spock we have always known has always repressed his human side. Mm-hmm. And them trying to shoehorn this relationship between Spock and Uhura into 09,
mm-hmm.
It just didn't, as you said, Eris, it felt forced. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel
it should have been a slow build up rather than they
shouldn't have had it right off the Samantha Jo Perrin, his second wife.
By the way, Jesse bounced, but by the way, we have the answer. But yeah, no, 100%, I agree with that. It does. It bothers me this time too. So
yeah, but this is a minor nitpick on my part.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for me to make a leap to see Winona Ryder as Spock's mother. I'm just gonna say it.
It was.
I don't dislike Winona Ryder as an actress. I do not dislike her. But of all the people you could have picked to be Spock's mother, why in the world her?
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't know who she was when I first saw the movie, and now knowing who she is now, it's like, oh, by the way, Jesse.
Yeah.
We have the answer.
The instrument Spock played is just called the Vulcan lute, the Vulcan lute. Oh, thank you.
All right.
By the way, Tubi and 323, I love your avatar. Children of the Night.
Okay.
What music they make.
But yeah, no, I feel like that should have been a more slow build up. It was very forced. And, it didn't work well for me at all. And even now, and you mentioned the, I thought the casting, we can go straight into casting, actually, now that you've mentioned it.
Sure.
The casting, I thought, was damn near perfect.
Yeah, I will agree. I mean, Chris Pine as a young Kirk and everything, he was good in this. I mean, everybody that they had playing their parts, I thought did a regardless of what he's playing in, Simon Pegg is always a win.
Mhm.
You know, and him as Scotty, it works. And I love the fact that they make Scotty a bit of a outcast, a bit of a rogue, in a manner of speaking. So I thought that was a nice turn and everything for Scotty's character.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the things that they kind of mentioned, because what's interesting about this movie kind of being almost an origin story, something we really never got in Star Trek, is actually seeing these characters, come together, because we kind of just drop in on them having already kind of met and known each other a little bit. So what's funny is, it's fascinating to watch. And listen to these characters tell these stories that we have heard, in the original series, and listen to them kind of tell it themselves as they were younger, and actually like watch things unfold that we had only heard about. And also, even when like when Pike gets, not really kidnapped, he's held hostage and tortured. Watching the cast, the crew coming together on the bridge, kind of just trying to figure everything out, and putting things aside, like personal problems and whatnot. It's like this is like meant to be, and it's not like they weren't going to obviously get along, but it's kind of how well they get along, even like immediately kind of all meeting each other from like the very beginning. Especially like with a mission, it was just like it was kind of nice. I don't know. It just,
one of the things I liked is the actor who actually played the young Kirk at the very beginning of the movie. He was actually in a show that my wife and I quite enjoyed, and so of course it got canceled after one season. He was one of the characters in a show called No Ordinary Family, and I actually quite enjoyed that show very much. And one of the continuity things I thought that was right, and if you don't know your Star Trek lore, you'll totally miss it. When Kirk is driving that car and that kid you see, you don't actually hear what he's saying, but he's saying, "Hey, Georgie." And talking about his brother, that's George Kirk.
Oh, really?
That was Kirk.
Oh, I heard Johnny. It didn't even dawn on me that, okay.
You wouldn't know unless you wouldn't know there was an actual scene that was cut before that where Kirk's mom, Kirk and George's James and George's mom is off planet. It looks like this guy, the boyfriend, stepdad, whatever. He's an asshole, and so. He says something to Kirk about him being good or something, or whatever the case may be. I don't remember if it was him or George who said it. So he decides to steal the car to be rebellious because George ran off. That's why George is actually walking, and that's why James has the car, because George left because George stood up to the guy, and Kirk at the time wasn't at that point in his life where he was that rebellious. He was actually more of in a sense, when you watch it, he seems kind of a little more timid. And this is kind of what gets him going, is his brother leaving. It's a really good cutscene. But yeah, that actually is, that scene there actually is, like I said, you miss it. But it's his brother, George.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I mishearing the name didn't even dawn on me. But like, that's fascinating. This movie does something that it's really difficult to do, and it kind of mixes the new with the old almost perfectly, in my opinion.
Yeah, seeing this, as I've mentioned, not as a hardcore Star Trek fan, but just as a casual one, really. This does blend the old lore with what Abrams and with everybody else that worked on this has tried to do relatively well. It sets forth an interesting precedent, which just you brought up, time travel and alternate dimensions, and or alternate timelines, to be more accurate. And
I do. That's a mic drop right there, Josh and Rebecca.
He can do it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, as I was saying,
Sorry.
I will say this: the villain and the conflict in this film is very much a theme within Star Trek.
Mhm.
Altering ultimate destiny, altering the past, and obviously revenge. In terms of what was the name? Eric Bana's character. What was the name of his character?
Nero?
What was the name of his Nero.
Nero.
Yeah.
Nero.
Hero.
Yeah. Thank you, Nero. You kind of get a iconish vibe from him in terms of his borderlines insanity and his thirst for revenge on Spock and on the Federation because of their failure and everything to prevent the destruction of Romulus and the Romulan people.
Mhm.
But
Don't forget the Remus was destroyed too.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah.
blow by that literally.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Romulus and
Romulus.
Remus.
Yeah, they totally
Yeah.
forget that it was Romulus and Remus.
Well, you
Okay.
forget they talk about Romulus, but Remus is the moon. Yeah. So like if
Yeah.
Romulus goes, Remus is most likely gone too. Just
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
but the point of
stopping it right
their,
after.
but the point of their symbol is when you look at the sphere is it
Mhm.
actually represents Romulus and Remus.
Yeah.
Yes, very true.
Mhm.
Yeah, which is kind of a callback when they were designing the new emblem for the Romulan Star Empire. Does go back to iconography from the Roman Empire here on
Mhm.
Earth, obviously. So, but I did enjoy the story. I did enjoy the premise of the film, and I'll say this for Eric Bana. I know Eric Bana gets a lot of grief for his role as the Hulk and Ang Lee's Hulk, but honestly, Eric Bana is a damn good actor. I enjoyed his part as Nero, and another part that he was in and everything in a film that came out just I think a few years or so before this was as Hector in Troy. So Eric Bana is a good actor. I think he made a good villain in this. I think he made a somewhat sympathetic villain in this, even though I don't approve of him destroying entire worlds to get revenge.
Well, does anybody?
I will say this about that Ann Lee Hulk. I don't blame Eric Bana for the outcome of that.
Nor do I.
Squarely on that all fits squarely on Ann Lee. I mean, you had Chris Elliott, for God's sake.
Nero. That's Nero. I kind of. There's half of me who is like, let's keep Nero, and there's another half who is like, replace him with Klingons, because there wasn't. I don't think there's a movie in this trilogy that focuses on Klingons. That's the main villain in TOS. Yeah, that's like doing a TNG reboot and skipping over the Borg. Like,
Picard.
I disagree with that. I like the idea that they went with the Romulans. I always felt that in the series, in many of the series, until you get to DS9, really, the Romulans really never got a whole lot of their backstory. And I'm going to say one thing, and this is the only good thing I will ever say about Star Trek Picard. They finally did explain why some Romulans had ridges and some don't. They at least give that explanation. That's the only good thing I will ever say about Picard.
Don't you mean Klingons? Why some Klingons have ridges and others don't?
And it was like different tribes or something like that, right? Is that what it was?
No. I know about the whole Klingon thing gets explained in ENT. In Picard, they actually explain. In Picard, he has the two Romulans, Tal Shiars, who live with him for some godly reason that never made any sense. One had ridges, one did. The male had ridges, and the female didn't. And the comment was, she said they're from Europe, and the guy they captured also had the ridges. And she said, it's because you're dense. It's because he's dense like you from the north. So the comment was, the ridges are basically somewhere in the northern part of Romulus versus the ones who don't have bridges, who look more like Romulans, look more like Vulcans, look like that. So that's why you see two different versions of Romulans, and it was always a sore subject. And I was like, okay, you finally explained Klingons. Could you explain this? And I said, okay, you got one thing right out of it. Out of 10 episodes, that's the only thing they got right.
Let's see. Like I said, I'm half and half. So I feel like Klingons, you could have gone with Klingons as like your main villain, but Nero is interesting. But I don't think they really nailed home what they could have. I feel like it was kind of like they had this very interesting, okay. So according to this movie, this guy and his crew just watched everything he's ever known get nuked. Okay, destroyed. Like, this isn't like your house is burning down. This isn't like someone ran over your dog. This is like literally all your history, your culture, your society, everyone you've ever known, everyone you've ever loved, everything you have ever known is destroyed. And I don't think they really played up the trauma that those guys had gone through well enough.
Somebody mentioned it in the chat, and I don't remember where it was, but they pointed out that his backstory was mentioned in the comic book Star Trek Countdown, and somebody
matter to me though. Do it in the movie.
I said no. I said if I gotta go read supplemental,
it was Josh and Rebecca.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, if I gotta go read a freaking prequel comic book for a movie to get explanations, you really fucked up.
Yeah, no, I believe that's probably really good because he had potential as a villain. He really had potential. I was kind of thinking it out, and I wrote it down actually. It was like, so like, okay, yeah, everything you love, like, okay, you're working as like a miner on you're mining shit, I don't know. You're coming back from your trip, okay? And you watch Earth get destroyed. And of course, he also had a wife that was pregnant. So you just also watched everyone you've ever known and loved, and then your unborn child. Everything, literally everything's gone. They did not sell me that trauma. And
now another thing in the comic book they don't tell you in this is why is that damn cargo ship or that mining ship so strong? In the comic book, after the explosion. They like reverse engineer Borg technology. I remember.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
So much, That's why it was so much stronger. Even after I was like, oh my god, that's about the lamest thing you could have came up with.
I mean, it makes sense, but like, I could have believed. You know what? I could have believed that was fine. It's like, oh, it's that big of a mining ship, like going against, how far in the future, like over 100 years in the future, technology even now is going at this rate. So it's like, imagine how much further they'd be in the future, like how much faster they're going, like exponentially. So you could have just sold me on the fact that, oh, this is a mining ship from the future, and it's just that strong.
Yeah.
And then, over the course of like years, maybe they built it. But I don't think Nero had potential, and they kind of sold me on it. The first 45 minutes of this movie is pretty good. What are you doing? What are you doing about
and if you look at the Kelvin, and if you look at the USS Kelvin, it is an updated version of another type of ship that was never actually seen in TOS, but when I had the old technical manuals and stuff, it did have that ship that had the saucer section, the dome, and then the single nacelle with the deflector dish on the front. So that actually was kind of was kind of a callback to another one. There are many callbacks. The only downside is JJ, I don't think, had a damn clue what any of them were. It was probably everybody else because he flat out said he didn't get Star Trek. Which should have been a red flag right there. And like I said, I'll give him Guy credit for the 3 movies.
At least he listened. Give him that. At least he listened.
Yes.
Well, and I'll draw an analogy here. And I think this is one that everybody will get. Hopefully, everybody will get. When you can connect better with Arthur Dent from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when Earth is destroyed, and you see the shock and trauma on his face.
Yes.
Both in the BBC version and in the version with Martin Freeman, the movie with Alan Rickman as the voice of Martin the robot. I'm sorry. You compare Nero to Arthur Dent.
Thank you.
Arthur Dent, in that moment, even though we don't get a whole lot of time with it, you see the shock, you see the horror, you see the disbelief and everything. And we're robbed of that in terms of Nero for the film. So.
Yeah, no,
What did you guys think?
Sorry, go ahead.
What did you guys think of the Enterprise? I think that was actually the one thing I really did not like. I did not like that look of the Enterprise.
I have mixed feelings about it. So I like when I was going over, it was like, okay, I can get behind it because, you know, and I think I even said this in your stream when we were talking about the military. These ships are supposed to be basically flying naval vessels. And so it kind of, you know, I've never been on one. I haven't been in the military. But just from what I've gathered, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that, especially like the engineering department, kind of just how it was. It just kind of gave it that industrial feel in the future. Sorry.
No, I was going to say is I actually enjoyed most of the interior. It was the exterior.
Oh, the exterior. Yeah, the exterior was
the exterior of it. The
interior.
interior I was actually quite pleased with.
The bridge. I didn't like the bridge. The bridge reminded me of an Apple store. Like I couldn't stop seeing an Apple. It was like, okay, so everything else they just updated everything. You know, it's like they kind of took and slid it into the modern era a little bit. So it was enough of the old to bring it like Medbay. How Medbay looks is perfect. How everything, like the corridors, everything, it's like that's fine. You walk on the bridge and I'm blinded, like I'm having to put on my sunglasses in order to walk onto the bridge because it's so white.
Yeah.
What you got?
This is generally considered most people's favorite version of the Constitution class.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Now this is actually not the refit. This is the A.
The A. Okay.
Yeah.
That's slick.
But I do have the refit and the original, but this was actually a Christmas gift from my my in-laws.
Nice.
And it's the only second big one I have when it comes to the size of those ships from Eagle Moss.
Well, and you know, just to play a little joke, it looks like Apple has survived into the 23rd century, and they have had influence on Starfleet.
Yeah,
at least in JJ Abrams' version of Starfleet. Yeah.
See if I can bring up like an actual photo of it so that my chat can see it. Just because it's so bright. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so.
Oh, I remember. It's Palooza. I remember.
You know what that bridge was, Ambassador?
Hmm?
The freaking view screen being a window.
Oh yeah, that was kind of weird for me. I was just kind of like, so okay. you telling me people can just see it? They can just roll up, you know, just kind of roll up and be like, "Sup, y'all," and then just like go out. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm gonna reference something I don't know if everybody's familiar with. Has anybody heard? Have either of you ever heard of the channel called How It Should Have Ended on YouTube?
Yes, I love that. I love it.
Okay. I don't know if you remember, but they actually did an animated short they do this with a lot of popular movies and everything, and they actually did one for Star Trek 09. And I remember it very vividly. Essentially, they destroy Nero's ship, but unfortunately they get caught in the black hole that was formed, and they're like, "We've dumped everything we can." And Kirk is like, "Hey, we're explorers. Why don't we just go explore?" We're like, "We don't know what's on the other side of that black hole, Kirk. We all could die." He's like, "Hey, it's all good. We're going to be fine." So they actually go through the black hole, and they end up in the Star Wars universe, right in firing range of the first Death Star, and the Death Star blows them the hell up.
Oh, rip. Oh, rip. Oh,
I never saw that one.
Oh,
I've seen a few. I've seen a few of how it should have ended, but I
I
missed
love
that.
those things.
you all
Yeah.
should watch them. You all should watch the ones for the sequel trilogy. They are priceless. They actually make the movies. They actually somehow make the movies better than the people who actually made them.
All right, so this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how bright it is.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
and this doesn't do it justice because, like, but this is a photo that I could find that was like big enough so that you could see as much as possible. But like,
Mhm.
it's so bright. It has the opposite problem of Star Trek Discovery, which is so dark you can't even see your hand in front of your face.
Yeah, I was going to say that it does. I at least think it looks better than the Star Trek Discovery Season 2 bridge for the Enterprise.
Well,
I believe that wholeheartedly. By the way, of course they are. So, go ahead.
you know, for me, my favorite bridge design, honestly, of any ship, not necessarily the Enterprise, I would have to say is the bridge from Undiscovered Country. I think that's by far my favorite bridge design because it's sleek, it's clean, it's got plenty of room to move, but at the same time, it feels like a combat vessel or an exploration vessel or a hybrid of the two.
Hey, do you know what,
Sure,
Ambassador?
go ahead.
Real fun quiz for you. Do you know why the bridge always looked different in each movie? Because every time they made a movie, they weren't sure there was going to be another one, and they kept tearing down the sets. That's why they always look different. No, I'm not kidding.
No, I believe you. That's funny though.
That's why the bridge always looks somewhat different in each movie because they kept tearing everything down. They never really saved anything.
That's what I
Well,
thought. You know.
Jesse, can you honestly blame them after Final Frontier?
Better than the sequel to Star Wars.
This is true.
Now, I agree with Eris Chaos on the bridge thing. I would have preferred something a little more muted. But if she pulls up the engineering, they really, I thought, did a bang-up job on the engineering department.
Give me a second. So, like, okay, everyone, just like imagine this, but just up your brightness of the screen so it's as white as possible. I was trying to find one that was similar, but let me see if I can get. Let's see. Well, just in general, trying to find. Let's see. La la la. All right.
Well, and, you know, I'll say this: just without all the lens flare, the setup of that bridge that you just had up, I liked. If you remove the lens flare, that's a good design for the bridge. And everything it fits with the war. It fits with the. Oh yeah, engineering. Yeah.
So we have the engineering. We have this one. Let's see if I can find.
Yeah, that would be. You would think that that'd be a hydroponics pump.
Yeah, not a cooling system for a starship. But also, now
I just looked it up and I'm just throwing them up here. Give me a second.
Honestly, I liked the design of the engineering. It seemed big. It seemed expansive. It honestly seemed more realistic, in a manner of speaking, than.
As someone who's been on a naval ship, it did actually fit better with it. And I served on two at two different times for very short periods during exercises. I wasn't actually stationed on them. But when I saw that, I was like, that actually does kind of give me and granted, I never went to the engineering section. I wasn't authorized to go there. But it gave more of a feel of this feels more like a naval ship.
Yeah.
Well, I have an interesting photo here. Now, let's see if I can bring this up real quick. You'll notice something about this. Do you notice something? Do you notice that this is an actual set? That it's a set?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be saying that, but if that's a set, somebody built that set. It's not just a green screen. That's a set. That's
Well,
in
yeah,
the
because
engineering department. But
I'll say this. I know that Abrams gets a lot of flack at times for some of the things he does in terms of the movies he makes. But I will say this for the guy. He has an appreciation for how old school Hollywood operated. I mean, let's be candid here. The guy takes a lot of inspiration from Lucas and Spielberg, and I imagine others as well. Despite his faults, the guy has appreciation for practical sets, for practical effects, for doing things old school. And in terms of his ability as a director on that end, I will give him every drop of credit that he deserves. Now, I know this may catch me some flack from other people. That's fine. You have your point of view. I have my own. So, but, J.J. Abrams, he has done some movies that I have thoroughly enjoyed. I loved 8mm, or not. Yeah, the one with the alien and the kids and everything that had Elle Fanning in it.
God, that was so much better than I thought it was going to be.
I went to see that movie in theaters when it came out because the premise of it looked intriguing. The trailer looked cool. And I was like, I can get on board with this. And I was thoroughly entertained by it. Say what you want about the guy in terms of Star Wars. And I know there's a split and everything in terms of The Force Awakens. Some people say it's just a reboot of the original. Other people say, hey, I actually kind of enjoyed this. I can say it as a diehard, and I am diehard. Everybody knows it. Star Wars fan. There were parts of Force Awakens I did enjoy. It was
my opinion on it. You know me, I'm a big EU guy, so why I have my issues.
And and hey, that's okay.
So getting back to something I just noticed in the chat was, because we'll tackle Star Wars another day, but not a set. I understand, building a set, but it's like they at least went somewhere. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is the difference is, I think I am a fan of CG, and green screen, obviously. But I think that there is a point, especially like a scene where you're running around, there's an action scene. It's that having things to actually interact with makes it more realistic. And, even if, even going to apparently like a research lab or a brewery, it's like, that's fine. That's cool. That's still a set, guys.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe the engineering department was actually set in a brewery.
Yeah, that's what the people in my chat are saying right now. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's like, well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, maybe they didn't build it and whatever. That's cool. I do imagine building this would have taken a lot. But when you film somewhere, you were on a set, regardless of whether you built it or not. That is a set. You have set up this thing. So that's just
Chris Persia. Yeah, there you go.
That's what my opinion on that. So that's what I just wanted to clarify, what I meant by a set. We're not standing in front of a green screen. We're standing in an area, and you're filming on a location that's a set that you have.
And as someone, the reason why I even noticed they look like a brewery is because I've actually, when I lived back home in Illinois, I actually lived right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, and I have gone on a tour of Anheuser-Busch in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it really kind of. I was like, they look like they did this in a brewery, and then I found out later they did. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's brilliant. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well, if you think about it, honestly, doing it on location, fine. I have no problem with that. At least they took some initiative. They thought outside the box, and hey, it's good. It's good publicity for Anheuser-Busch. Hey, we had a Star Trek movie filmed at our brewery. Come
Yeah,
see
they
it.
can put that. Yeah, they can put that.
Yeah,
there too. It's like a
exactly.
brewery.
And in this area of the brewery, we actually had we had a Star Trek movie filmed.
Yeah, and
And
I
I'd
mean,
be like, hey, okay, now
Yeah.
let's go get a beer.
yeah, that's smart because I mean, honestly, like
Mhm.
building this is I was saying it was being built. I was just kind of like looking at it, like it's a lot
Mhm.
to fucking build. Jesus Christ!
You
So it
think?
makes more
You think?
sense for it to have been filmed like on a location.
Yeah.
I
Well,
just
Samantha Joe brings up one of the research labs was Lawrence Livermore in Northern California. So
yeah,
um,
but
that's
using that, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
exactly.
I'm going to watch the 2009 movie a little later. I really am going to need to remember. I want to know if they actually ever use the term Jeffrey's tube.
I don't think they ever do.
And that's too bad because that should have been in there because I think they were in a Jeffrey's tube a few times.
Yeah,
And
they were.
Yeah, and Eris, I don't know if you know, Jeffrey's tube is named after, and I can't remember exactly where he is in the TOS thing, but he's a person who was very heavy. I think he was a set designer or something. Don't quote me on that. But that's why the term Jeffrey's tube. That's why it's called a Jeffrey's tube. It is actually named after a person from the TOS era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting.
And happy anniversary to Josh and Rebecca.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Anniversary, you crazy kids. Go have something good to eat. Go have something good to eat.
Yeah. You said Eris, yes. I am Eris.
We are all Eris.
No, there's only one. There is only one.
That was a little B5 joke. Just a little one.
I want to see if I can get Medbay because I really liked how they updated Medbay.
Oh yeah. You know. Well, and something else I'll comment on. I like for this movie. I really enjoyed the costume design, particularly for Starfleet.
That was a good update.
I loved it. Now I'll say this: my favorite of all Star Trek uniforms has to be the TOS movie uniforms. Love those uniforms to death. Love them, love them, love them. And even the thing that you see and everything, in particular in the one episode of TNG called Tapestry with Picard, they still use those uniforms during Picard's time in Starfleet up until a point. You don't see the newer uniforms until we get into TNG and everything with the first episode, at Farpoint. And honestly, Chris Persia, we may not all be Eris, but we're all chaotic. Yeah,
you're allowed
I can see that.
I guess, yeah.
So, but yeah, honestly, I love the costume. I love the costuming in this film. It feels real. It feels organic. It feels like a natural progression and everything. At least for the first movie. So.
I got Sick Bay up. This was one of my favorites. This is my favorite updated. I really liked. Like it looks like Sick. This is what I'm talking about. Like the muted colors. It's not like bright white like the bridge was. This looks like. This looks like Sick. This is Sick Bay. This is updated. That's it. That's all I wanted with the bridge. And said they literally got the brightest white they could find at Home Depot or Space Home Depot, and they painted everything that bright white to the point that you have to wear sunglasses in order to be on there. And then they, for some odd reason, and you talked about how it should have ended, they put a lens flare button for some odd reason.
Yeah, to decrease lens flare by 25%.
It's like, we can actually see things now. It's like, good Lord.
Well,
it's so bright white, probably everything's reflecting off of it. Now, Lord only knows why. I mean, obviously, there's lens flares probably happening because there's just a sheet of glass as the view. Like, okay.
Well, and here's the interesting thing about this med bay or sick bay. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It has a real feel to it because a lot of the equipment is still on wheels. You don't have like everything that's like stationary, or you don't have it on like hover units and everything. It all has a link to the past.
Mhm.
It has a link back to our current. So that's the one thing that I really appreciate about this. Or anything, you've got the overhead bright lights and everything for doing examination. The displays on all of the equipment seems like it would be a normal technological progression for the world.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point, Loki. Oh, so I did look it up real quick. Turns out Jeffries Tube was named for set designer, I believe, Matt Jeffries, and it turned out it was an inside joke. Somebody actually hung up Jeffries Tube, and he said it wasn't me, but somebody hung it up like a plaque or something, and it said the name stuck.
I mean,
and hey, Loki, thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I actually.
So yeah, that would make sense. Well, and I don't know if I think I told Jesse this. Me and Mama Bastard, we went out the other this past weekend, and she actually found season 1 of TNG for $5, and it's like the collector's edition set. It's just season 1, but we're like, hey, it's a start.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on.
Yeah, I think for Christmas I really do want to get the. I have TNG on DVD. I really want to get that enhanced Blu-ray version because I really like the updates they did to it. And if I could just get DS9 in Blu-ray, ENT and Voyager, I'll leave in DVD. But man, if I could just get TNG and DS9 also in Blu-ray because I got TOS in it, I would just be a happy man.
They haven't done that yet, have they? Have they switched it to Blu-ray, or am I mistaken?
Not DS9. TNG, they enhanced TNG to kind of clean it up, and similar to what they did with TOS, but in TNG they just kind of cleaned it up. And it, I've seen the before and afters, and it's just something I haven't picked up yet. But Loki, the Blu-ray is awesome. Yeah. I'm gonna get it. I think that's my. I'm gonna put that on my birthday list in October for my wife. I'm gonna like, yeah, give me that one. Yeah, I agree with Hyde's podcast. I love the TOS editions.
So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the difference in the bridges. All right, like
no bloody A, B,
C, or D.
Yep. And so, like, with it being so white, they could have still had it bright. This was a bright set, but it was just, oh man, it's just, this is better, because you also have to remember, like, in space is very, very dark. You're looking at it, and then you go from the white, your eyes have to adjust, and these muted colors, actually help a lot more with that. It's not such a drastic eye adjustment, and especially if you're staring at the screens, which are very bright. Like this it just helps. Like I went on this ship for when I was very young, and we actually spent the night on that ship, and what they told us is that make sure that the flashlight you use is red, because your eyes adjust better with red light than it does white light or blue light or any other light. Red light is the best.
I can actually explain that to you, Eris of Chaos. So one of the things they gave us in the military when we do training and stuff is we get a flashlight, and the flashlight would come with different colors. And the reason why they tell you to use the red one at night specifically is because when you turn it around, hold on a second, Bubba. When you turn it around or you see it move, your eyes don't readjust. Remember, when it's dark, your eyes adjust to darkness. But if you flash a bright light in your face, your pupils are going to go back and you're going to constrict, and it takes you a while to get out. The red light eliminates that.
Yeah, it still allows for the usage of light without the harsh transition. So to me, it makes sense for the bridge to not be white because it's that same thing of that harsh transition.
God, that bridge is beautiful.
I know, isn't it? Like,
You know, I've got
imagine everything from the bridge kind of moved over into an updated version of this. Like, just imagine that. Like, there's nothing wrong with this bridge. I think it's just kind of universally loved.
It's not too hard. Just watch Prelude to Axanar.
Oh yeah,
true.
Well, and, I'll say this: I've got a professor from seminary who is a diehard TOS. I mean, he grew up watching it. He went and saw every single TOS movie. TOS is his thing, and I've had the opportunity to talk with him off and on, and I asked him, I was like, what do you think of modern Trek, like TNG and DS9 and stuff like that? He's like, I like it. It's okay. But for him, this right here, this is his Star Trek. This is his Enterprise. This is what he loves. And the really cool thing is he has autographs from every single member of the original cast.
That's amazing.
Yeah, either he got them in person. I think he got all but I think like 2 or 3 in person. The rest, I think he wrote to them, and they were gracious enough to mail back something with their autograph on it.
Wow.
Yeah, and he even has the original motion picture poster. It's not in great shape, but it's like my professor. He's an ordained pastor, and he's like one of the biggest Trekkies you'll ever meet in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway,
yeah. No, I mean, I'm just listening to your story. I mean, honestly, I think all of us can talk about, our little things that have happened in our life have to do with Star Trek. Like, I'm a 3rd generation Trekkie.
Say that.
My grandparents watched it as it was coming out. So,
I'm second generation myself. My son isn't really into Star Trek yet.
He's into Orville, right?
Yes, he is. He has seen both seasons. In fact, he was watching that. I think he's seen season 2 more than I think he's seen all of season 2 at least 4 times by now. Mm-hmm. And I've only seen it once. And it was so funny. I was like, AJ, pause the show, man. You're watching it. He goes, Dad, I've watched it several times. I already know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, if I can't get him into Star Trek at the moment, at least he's getting a faithful
he's getting into the modern day, the true modern day Star Trek, which
he's getting a very good. I'll say it this way, and I'm not saying it's a slight. He's getting a very well done fan fiction.
Yeah,
you know what?
Yeah.
Oh, you should have seen his face when we told him that the guy captain who plays Ed, Seth MacFarlane plays Ed Mercer. We told him it's like, that's Peter and Stewie and
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
What's his name from Family Guy?
Brian.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the same guy, and it's just like, man.
Seth MacFarlane is a huge Trekkie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, huge. Let's be candid. He's probably one of the most, a little aside from maybe the original cast or anybody who's ever been attached to Star Trek. This guy is like the Star Trek super fan. He's like the Steven Sansweet of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, he was in the last season of Enterprise. He was one of the engineers on the Columbia. Really? And I finally I got to that episode. It was where Trip decided to transfer from the Enterprise to the Columbia. Oh. And he's talking to his team, and Seth MacFarlane is one of the engineers. And actually, I don't remember the guy's name who plays Trip Tucker, but I remember that when Orville came out and, Ed was going to be the captain, I remember the guy who played Trip saying, the actor who played Trip saying, it's always good to see one of my former engineers get promoted. So there was there was some tight. Yep, there he is.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Such a baby face. But such a brilliant mind.
Amazing. Yeah, that was like kind of just took me back. So, yeah.
I think he was in just that one episode. He might have been the second one. I don't remember, but yeah, he was on the Columbia. He was on the NX-02, and it was really fun to look at him. I'm like, now I remember the reference. Oh, thank you, AJ.
You're welcome.
Thanks, bud.
You're welcome.
Oh, you got the blue one. Awesome. Sorry, my
Yeah, it's a drive-by.
Turkey.
Is that beef? Oh, good. Is it the
Oh,
mild?
Lord.
Did you have
Yes, it's the
mild
mild.
one?
Yes, it's the blue.
The
Only
original.
real men eat spicy jerky. You wimp.
But yeah, he's always been, when you watch Orville, I mean, you can just tell he has a concept and he's trying to basically, I mean, when we first heard about it, we thought it was going to be maybe a parody. And I truly felt it's a love letter. And the one thing he's got going for him is he's taking the idea of Star Trek, but he doesn't have all the weight of continuity.
Yes. Well, I've got to wait till we get paid in a week or so and everything. And I'm gonna order season 1 of Orville off of Amazon because I can't find it anywhere. I have tried. Believe me, people, I have tried because I have heard so much about the Orville. I want to get caught up so I can talk with everybody else that's an Orville nut, so I'm not left out of the conversation because I like good sci-fi. And and I'll say this to kind of steer us a little bit back on topic. J.J. Abrams films in terms of Star Trek, they may not be the most faithful. Damn, that's a cool looking bridge.
Yeah, it was like, okay, this is what JJ should have gone for. This is what JJ should have gone for.
This bridge is a nice balance between the TOS kind of style or the original Star Trek and the JJ movies.
Yeah,
it's just nice.
I agree.
The colors are toned. This is what I'm talking about, muted colors, but still maintaining the brightness.
Yeah.
So this is what it's like. You can have white, you just can't have the brightest white on the shelf.
Well, you the contrast with that blue, blue there.
The blue.
That's a good balance.
This is perfect. Yeah.
Again, as I was trying to say.
Yeah.
I know everybody's got their beefs with J.J. Abrams when it comes to Star Trek. I get it. But in terms of him doing sci-fi of just about any kind, oftentimes he hits more often than he misses. And that's not me trying to play softball with the guy or anything.
No, your opinion. Like that's how you feel. And I'm pretty soft on the 2009 one because it got me into Star Trek, which is, it's like, for whatever it was, it's like it did get me into this thing, And
that's the great thing. If a movie or a TV show can get you into a universe in spite of its flaws, that's a win.
Yeah.
That's always a win.
As I would say, I became an IT guy because of Scotty. He was an engineer.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Hyde's podcast says the Orville is the Star Trek we should have gotten.
Agreed.
Yeah,
and again, man, some of the people in your chat, Eris, have got some really good avatars. I love your avatar, Mr. Hyde.
Yeah, it's great.
I'm assuming that's an homage to Mr. Dr. Henry Jekyll or Mr. Edward Hyde.
I would assume, there's a nice little crossover there.
Yeah,
it's a
great piece of Edwardian fiction. Great.
I was actually thrilled when I heard. I was thrilled when I heard Orville for season 3 was going to Hulu. I was like, oh, thank God, because I was terrified that Fox was going to do what Fox does best, which is take good shows and screw them and just cancel them.
Well, just remember Hulu's owned by Disney, so don't.
Yeah.
No. They don't own all of it. I think they only own about 20 some odd percent. They are not. They are not the majority holder.
All right, I'm just.
No, but I think it is I think it is just a better fit. And I mean, everybody, the love of it is like, I think the only thing more exciting recently I heard, other than Orville going to Hulu when I found out, is that Cobra Kai is going to Netflix for season 3.
Mm-hmm. I heard about that too. Still haven't
Netflix,
watched it, but I've heard
Netflix has the tendency to cancel shows. So, I mean, there's the pros and cons with every platform you go on, which you have to
Very
remember
true.
that. But Netflix does have a tendency to cancel shows. But
yeah. Well, and here's the thing: Seth MacFarlane has got enough clout and enough pull, and he's got a good handle. He's almost got a cast iron grip on the Orville. I don't see him letting Hulu or Disney or anybody else screw around with his baby.
And let's be honest, we got the woman who played Cassidy Yates, Cisco, my captain's wife, as the doctor.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
just don't mess with it. That's all I'm asking. It's like wherever it ends up, wherever it goes, on this journey, I just don't want people to mess with it because I can't. I don't think I'll be able to handle losing Star Trek basically for a second time, if that makes sense.
Like I said, Seth MacFarlane, he's got, and I'll use abbreviation. He's got FU money. He can tell a studio or a platform, you want to sue my baby? FU. He'll go somewhere else. I mean, this guy. Let's be candid here. This guy has he's got a great comedic mind. I know he takes pot shots at faith and everything, Christianity on Family Guy. Okay. I still watch it. I'll still laugh. Seth MacFarlane makes me laugh. He does.
Yeah, but let's not forget he's what adds to his clout is he's not just an actor. Okay, being an actor can be one thing. You're going to rise and fall at some point. We all know actors who are at the peak of their time. But he's a writer, a content creator, a producer. The man has got the hats to be like, oh, you want to mess with my stuff? Oh, no. See, I'll take care of it myself, and I'll shop myself around to somewhere else because he is still that marketable. He is that marketable.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. He is one of those pockets in the entertainment industry that doesn't push his political or social agenda down everybody's throat, and that's what makes him popular. That's what makes him That's what makes him marketable to the public. That's why there is such a large fan base. I imagine that fan base for the Orville probably encompasses all spectrums of the political and social spectrum. So,
and also we all knew. All of us that were sci-fi geeks, we knew his passion for Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but he actually tried to pitch to CBS an idea for a Star Trek series.
Yeah, and
they blew him off. Yeah, go do your Family Guy. Go do this. And like,
so he went and did the Orville. Fuck you. And Orville is now far more popular than their actual brand name Star Trek is. And I say brand name because it's not really Star Trek.
I agree. And that's why I say, you have people. We all love, those of us who hate STD for what they've done to Star Trek. We're all like, you had it right here in your hands. It's like when Netflix offered to sell to Blockbuster before they got a little bit bigger a few years later. It's like you had the golden calf in your hand. And you just let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
And CBS lost huge. I mean, I'm glad they rejected him because we got a much better content because they did.
Imagine Orville in CBS hands. Like it would not be this. This wouldn't be the same.
Well, and I'll say this is coming from someone who has not seen not Enterprise, but Discovery, and who has not seen Picard.
Yeah, same.
If I have to pay, now granted, we do have Disney Plus and we do have HBO Max.
Okay.
And we are happy with both of those. But CBS putting the show exclusively on a platform that you have to pay for.
Yeah, that was awful.
When CBS could have just broadcasted it normally
Yeah, they have a television channel, guys. Did y'all forget about that?
They have a freaking channel. They could have broadcasted it on both, but
Mhm.
oh no, we're gonna make people pay for crappy Star Trek.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's stupid. That was an awful business decision. And
sorry, I'm not gonna watch it. I will
no
not.
one heard about it. I think I saw one commercial and ever on it. Back when anytime I'd go visit my parents, it's like I'd see it. Just I think I saw one commercial for it, and it's like you should have had that sucker right there out on the main line. But knowing a little bit of what was actually going on in that show, I don't know if they could have broadcasted some of that shit on TV.
They couldn't have.
I don't think they could have.
That's why you've got incest and profanity on Picard.
Yeah, very odd.
That crap won't pass on normal broadcast television. No way.
Anyone who's seen the fourth Star Trek movie knows that profanity isn't a thing really in the Star Trek universe. It's not like they have to be like even like Spock has to be explained to like what it is. It's like it's not a thing. People don't use it, and so then they bring it. But anyway, let's just get back to we'll talk about that later. But let's get back to
oh yeah, that whole thing there though is I'll drop it all day of the week. Ambassador's heard me do it.
Yeah, me
but
too.
I don't want F-bombs in my freaking Star Trek.
No, it's weird because it's
it's not. It doesn't fit.
Well,
it's established.
Well, here's the thing. In Star Trek 4, when you have the swearing when they're back in the 1980s, the profanity wasn't obscene. It wasn't overly obscene. It was played for laughs. It was played for comedy. Yeah. And it wasn't any worse than saying damn or shit or double dumbass on you.
That is always my favorite one.
It was played for laughs.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It was a time
travel story. Directed it.
Yeah, it was to show the evolution. People, we just don't see that anymore. We don't see the point in saying it anymore. And that would make sense. Eventually, when things lose, power, they stop really being said. And swear words to this day really do still have power, which is why they're frowned upon. So when words lose power, people kind of stop out, and it's not a thing. So the culture and the society evolved to not using profanity. And throw that in reverse.
Like in
Sorry.
It's like when in Generations when Data says, "Oh shit," it actually fits with it because he's brand new to emotions, so he's not used to reacting to that kind of stuff. So him saying that actually made sense to me because this is a new concept. Man. Most of us would probably be, if we're about to do it, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I honestly, I went and saw Generations in theaters. I actually laughed when Data said that. I was like, did Data say what I just think he said? And a lot of people in the theater, I remember this vaguely. There were some people that were in the theater that actually laughed when Data said, "Oh shit."
And that was the only cuss word they really used in so we can get back to 2009 because I know we got off. Was when he meets when Kirk meets Spock Prime at Leonard Nimoy, and he's like, he's like, I am Spock, and he's like, bullshit. Well, that would make sense. He's like, why the hell would I believe you? And I like how, and here's really what I loved about it. Leonard Nimoy had not played Spock in a long time. He hadn't played Spock since TNG. Yeah. And in TNG in the, what was it, the late 80s, early 90s was when the last time he had played it. And we're talking 2009. And unlike Picard, which I have seen, unlike Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, and Maria Spritz, who seem to, and even to some degree, Brent Spiner couldn't remember how the hell their characters were supposed to act.
Just rewatch it.
Leonard came right back on screen, and I was like, "It's Spock."
Yeah,
and
he's back
acting like Spock. And when we see the scene after the bullshit, he's like, "It is agreeable to see you again, my friend." Or when he says, I have and will always shall
I'll
be
be your friend. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, I got emotional.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. One of my notes here is literally everything with Leonard Nimoy makes me sad. That's one of my notes here.
Well, yeah, because
he's gone. Yeah.
yeah, and the last time we see him is on a view screen in Into Darkness.
Well,
Yes,
Yeah.
but he gives such great advice to young. It's like, you know, when they're looking at each other, Mr.
Mhm.
Spock, Mr. Spock. And then he, you know, he
Mhm.
goes into it. I know we're jumping to Into Darkness real quick.
No, that's
But when
fine.
he says, you know, I wasn't going to, you know, I said I wouldn't tell you about the future. That being said,
Mhm.
Khan is, and he goes into it. He's telling him,
Yeah. So
I'm not
you
going
have
to tell
no
you.
idea, man.
I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of the most ruthless people you're ever going to come across. And
Yeah.
and I mean, of course, Spock would think that way and
He
have that
died.
kind of strong touch because he died.
He died
Exactly.
protecting the ship. And okay, you know what? We can go into darkness at this point because I mean, in 2009 is I have a lot more positive to say than negative. You know, like I like. Yeah, I like the Spock and Sarek moment. You know, I like how Kirk makes Spock emotionally compromised. There's a whole section at the end of the movie where I didn't mind. You know, I liked how I liked how the Enterprise was hidden in Saturn's rings to kind of keep it from being detected. Because it would have, while staying in the solar system, so they could beam back and forth. That was brilliant, you know. And there's so many good. I think there's so much good. It just didn't reach its full potential because they didn't explore Nero enough as a character. I hate the destruction of Vulcan, but holy hell, that's exactly what Nero would have done.
Oh, one of the things I do also, we didn't really touch on it.
Mhm.
Young Spock, when he gets into the fight with those Vulcans,
Mhm.
that really, I could really relate to believing that
Yeah.
because I remember in TOS when we first meet Spock's mother and Sarek, and he's talking to them, and he's like, "Do you remember coming home crying because they said you weren't really the other children said you weren't really Vulcan?" He talked about his anger. She said he came home angry and stuff, and I was like, "This really fits." So where JJ may not have understood Star Trek like we did, he at least had enough damn sense in this to listen to people who did.
Yeah, he had
It
people who
really
knew.
does pay a lot of homage. And that's what I said. One of the biggest things I liked about it is I can pull a little thing down. I'm not saying they're all interconnected, but I can pull things from that movie and really reference them right back
It
to
fits. Like I believe this is this movie did was make me truly believe even now this is an alternate timeline. Like this is the same people. They're just it's an alternate timeline because there's so much connection, but it's different. You know,
exactly, and that's where I give JJ all the damn credit in the world for that one.
Yeah,
Is he was smart enough to they were smart enough to tell us in advance, hey, this is going to be a different this is going to be an alternate reality.
They say it
so
in the movie,
and for Star Trek people, we get that. We've seen the mirror universe. We've seen fluid space. We understand them.
Exactly. One last thing that talking good things. I like the end being read, the space, the final frontier. I like that being read by Leonard Nimoy. I like that over the credits is the original theme song. I thought that was perfect. The cast
didn't do that also in Wrath of Khan. Wasn't that kind of a play? Yes, because I remember he was at the end of Wrath of Khan, he's doing space, the final front. And then when they did it, I was like, oh, they went all the way back to Wrath of Khan. There was just so much I could gravitate towards and say, okay, I can connect this. And I can believe you were trying to do something as faithful as you could while updating it.
Yeah. And one problem I did have, I took a black holes class when I was in college, and I have a slight issue with this movie using black holes the way they do because it's so wrong. It's not even funny. If they would have just made the black hole a wormhole, I wouldn't have had nearly as much of an issue with it. Like just being able to produce a black hole and then what it vanishes, like that to me, I'm just like, like a wormhole would have had the same kind of thing, in my opinion.
Now, it's been a long time since I read anything about black holes because science wasn't really my area. I'm more of a history civics guy.
Well,
but wasn't that
suck.
black hole like a collapsing star?
Yeah,
Yes.
they can either go like they explode and then everything collapses back in on itself, and it creates such a strong pull of gravity that nothing, not even light, can escape it. So I have a huge problem with a fucking spaceship coming out of a black hole, because that's completely wrong. If they would have just said wormhole, I would have been cool with that. That makes total sense. There would have been a delay in space-time because of the nature of that wormhole. They could have, what they could have done is, in the supernova with Romulus and Remus, they could have had, that wormhole, and then where does that go? Where does all that thing go? Because a wormhole is like a tunnel. There is another side to it, so they could have added that as another extra thing and used that in a different movie. And so like this one event kind of, like a spider web, like a ripple in a pond, kind of rippled out things that you could have used pieces of this movie to further create other movies. This movie by itself is kind of just standalone, generally speaking. And yeah, there's still like the cast and crew. It's kind of it takes that episodic kind of feel from TOS. But
who's the guy who played Sarek? What was his name?
I don't know.
In the original?
Fantastic.
No, not the original. The 2009. The guy who played Sarek.
Whoever they cast, he did.
I thought he did a great job. I thought he really honored that character well.
Yeah, the explanation. Him trying to be like, hey, having that moment. I even wrote down the quote. It was like, "Speak your mind, Spock. That would be unwise." It's just like him trying to deal with his emotions. Like he just watched his planet die. He watched his mom slip through his fingers, literally. Like that's trauma, and he was rolling with it until someone addressed it, and it's like he was just repressing it, and then for his dad to go after him, I thought was wonderful. And that doesn't even speak of the portion of, the Vulcan Science Academy scene that we've seen at the beginning, which I love everything about that. How he does it, how he rejects them, how, his father's there to watch it. And he's just like, oh, my handicap? Okay, well, fuck it. It was so human reaction, so petty, such a human reaction.
And when he says live long and when he says live long and prosper, it's like, oh, he's saying fuck you.
Yeah, and he smirks. If you watch it, he smirks. And he's like, that's so human. So, of course, his dad would feel humiliated. So that would, there'd be a rift between them, because not only did he reject something his father had clearly, like, really worked for him to get into, but he was there. He acted very human, and he rejected, like, it's just, that would create the rift. So to actually see that was wonderful, because I believe that
when it comes to and I want to say to the acting of Zachary Quinton, when Heroes started to go to shit, he was the only thing that was keeping me engaged. As was it Cyrus?
Yes.
I didn't know. Yes. I know.
Oh my god, he was like the best. Once they finally cast him as the character, and you start seeing how he starts acting, I was like, this guy became the sole reason I was watching. And even when season 2, season 3, I never saw season 4, but I saw parts of season 4. But he literally became the sole reason. Even when the writing and everything went bad, I just wanted to see what his character was gonna do. He became the sole focus of why I would even watch the show.
He's a good actor.
He's just that good of an actor, I thought.
Yeah, I think he it's very hard to follow in the steps. Okay, Leonard Nimoy's step. That's his Jack Sparrow. That's his thing. That's what he will always be remembered as. And to then have to follow in those footsteps is very difficult. And I think Zachary Quinto did a pretty good job. I don't think there's anyone who could have done it better. We already saw someone try to do it better. Ethan
Pricker.
Yeah, that poor guy.
The guy who actually sings with number 1. We're
gonna scroll past that. It just I Oh, here we go. Thank you so much.
What about Carl Uber? Is it just me, or was
Carl
Uber?
Urban, you mean?
Urban
Yeah, Carl Urban, who
Bones.
I mean,
he
yeah,
nailed
the
it.
guy just had that character nailed. It made me really believe it. And if you haven't seen The Boys on Amazon, oh my God, the second season is about to drop. And I had some people telling me, "Oh, this superhero show is graphic, it's violent." I said, "Buddy, I read the comic book. This is PG compared to what they did in the comic book, big time." But Carl Uber really
Urban.
got into the character. Urban.
He's like the method actor. He gets into his roles like something I found out about this. He actually watched all that he could of TOS, and he would watch and mimic down to like the micro expression that DeForest Kelly would make when he was playing Bones, so that he could do that to be more like the character. And it's like when you watch that movie, you're like, that's Bones. That is young Bones, because that is exactly what he does. That's exactly how he talks. His movements, like just how he does things, the little eye squint, just the little
Transporters.
things. Oh.
And and for those of you who don't remember, he was actually, anybody remember the show Hercules: Legendary Journey in Xena?
Yes.
I don't remember which one he was in, but he was Cupid.
Yep.
He was also in Lord of the Rings. I thought somebody in my chat wouldn't know.
Oh, I know.
None of the person knows who I'm talking about. Person in my chat who hasn't seen Lord of the Rings. They know.
Yeah, Samantha Joe.
They know.
I'll call her out. I'll do it. I'll call her out. We're good. If we, like I said a few weeks ago, if we have to go Clockwork Orange on her, strap her to a chair, and use those little pincer things to open her eyes like they did on Roddy McDowell and everything.
You do that, my friend.
We'll do it to her to make her watch Lord of the Rings. Samantha Joe, you are watching Lord of the Rings. Period.
So I'm the unpopular one I'm the minority in this area.
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoy this movie. I generally did enjoy it.
I do.
For several reasons, for many reasons, and I'm going to speak a few of them. One, Rathacon is not my favorite. It is actually number 3 behind The Undiscovered Country and The Voyage Home. So Ricardo Montalban, while he was a great actor and did a good job as Khan, I am actually more familiar with Benedict Cumberbatch's works on many different things, and I just quite enjoyed it. It was also nice to have Peter Weller, the guy who was in RoboCop, and he was actually in Star Trek Enterprise right before the season finale. He was in the last 2 episodes. He was part of a terrorist organization trying to get all aliens off of this. Whereas Archer's trying to get, bring everybody together. This guy is a xenophobe, and his group are xenophobic, and they're trying to get him all off. And I think he played a certain, I can't remember if he was playing somebody that was mentioned in TOS. But Peter Weller is one great actor, plays in one of my favorite sci-fi horror movies, Screamers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if anybody's
you've seen that? I love
Ambassador, Ambassador, you need to do a stream on that one day. But
I'll consider it.
Overall, overall for me, Into Darkness was generally enjoyable. I felt like this was a good middle point for it because Kirk is still a young captain. We can argue the finer points of how he got promoted, but I bought into it because I've seen how Star Trek people get promoted. And trust me, it ain't normally through the normal military chain, so that never bothered me. Benedict Cumberbatch, I quite enjoyed. I liked the fact that they mentioned the mud ship, from the incident. That was kind of a nice throwback. I didn't mind the Tribbles. I thought that was fine because we could have said they'd seen Tribbles at different times. I just generally enjoyed it. The biggest thing that ticked me off
Okay.
about the movie
Mhm.
is the fact that you're telling me that Khan beamed off Earth,
Mhm.
and went to Kronos. I'm like, no, that's not possible. That was the biggest continuity blunder ever. I don't care how far advanced their technology got. There was no way he was going to be able to do that. It just was so beyond Star Trek. It was the biggest suspension of disbelief when it came to Star Trek, was him being able to just energize off of there. Because if you're telling me he could energize to Kronos, what's stopping the Klingons from energizing to Earth? Or the
Well,
Romulans?
Fair point. Fair point. I never
Well,
even thought about
because
that.
he's isn't this Khan or anything? Isn't he aren't they like holdovers from like the Eugenics Wars or something like in the original storyline?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are holdovers from the Eugenics Wars, and yes, I know he helps make stronger military ships for the Admiral, but the truth of the matter is that technology is damn near impossible. It's been tried. It's like TNG's transwarp drive. It's damn near impossible. They don't have it. And there's no way you're going to make me believe that a guy from the 1990s, I don't care how freaking smart he is going to be able to come in to the 23rd century and see a transporter and figure out how to make it not just 10% better, but he's supposed to have reversed engineer it to go light years. Okay, this was even mentioned in Star Trek Enterprise when the guy who created the original transporter for humans was talking about creating a transporter that could go from Earth to Vulcan. Well, in Enterprise, Earth to Vulcan is 16 light years. No, no, you normally have to be within a few thousand. Yes, they can transfer far, but they even mentioned certain certain materials they don't want to transport through, certain solid rock. The whole point of, and then when you had in the original Enterprise, when Kirk goes to infiltrate the Romulan ship, he can't, get beamed from transporter to transporter. So he even says, just don't beam me into a wall. So they had to take their best guess on where to land him.
Fair point.
That was actually, for everybody who has an issue with Into Darkness for a lot of things, that was really my biggest problem. And it's probably because I'm an IT guy and technical is my thing.
My big problem with Into Darkness, from what I remember it, I should have done my homework. I'm sorry, everyone. But my big thing is, oh yeah, there you go. My big thing is they cure death at the end of Into Darkness.
Why you gotta bring up Porthos?
They cured death. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I have a huge problem with
Wait a minute, you have a
curing
problem
death.
with that? What about what happened in The Search for Spock?
Okay.
Yes, I know McCoy had his Katra.
Okay.
But still, how did his body? I mean, if you really, I'm sorry, I racked my brain trying to figure out how Genesis took a dead body, turned it back into a child, then he rapidly ages and comes back to what he is. I was like, ugh, that's a little.
Well, that's one of the things.
That's different than taking a dead body and then just bringing it back to life when it's already started to decompose. That was something I can't tell you in Search for Spock how that happened. I'd have to rewatch it. I'd have to go back over it with a fine-tooth comb. I can't tell you, but what I can tell you is that Tribbles plus Con plus some fucking magic equals cure for death, apparently. and that is
Call
blown
suspension of
by
disbelief.
and beyond. Okay, that is and beyond. There's like, okay, no one should ever worry ever again about dying.
Mhm.
And beyond, like that is a worry, and it's just like, but why though? Like y'all have the cure for death.
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm Eris. I'm gonna get off in a minute. I gotta go help with dinner. But I do want to say this. There's a reason why this is my favorite of all the Star Trek 3 movies, and it's one reason and one reason only. I am a hard rock heavy metal fan.
You're a Beastie Boys fan, aren't you? That's why. Yep.
I liked it when they showed up and it was all, I like the beats and shouting. I'm like, oh, yes.
When they fight the people that Beastie Boys sabotages on, it's just like, I downloaded it on my phone like immediately.
I'm not even that big of a Beastie Boys fan, but when they had I think it was Sabotage playing on the trailer, I was like, damn.
Oh, I like it. No, yeah, especially when he's like, you know, they picked what they were going to pick for it at the end, and it's a throwback to the first movie, and he's like, good choice. And I was kind of like, yeah, Kirk's a Beastie Boys fan.
Well, the amazing thing is the fact that Beastie Boys survived into the 23rd century. What can you say about that? That's awesome.
Hey, they had good taste. What can I say?
Of course.
All right. Well, hey guys, thanks for letting me come on.
Hey, you want to plug your channel before you go?
Here, I've been on here about 30 minutes longer than I planned, but
right.
I gotta go help out with dinner and stuff.
Well, you want to plug your channel before you go?
Yeah, my channel is MB Geese Let's Talk. Come this Monday, the Ambassador, one of my great co-panelists, we are actually going to be discussing my favorite Star Trek episode. We are going to talk DS9 in the pale moonlight. And I cannot wait. I am so looking forward to this. And also next Saturday afternoon, if everything still goes well, my wife, Madam Geek, Eris of Chaos, Samantha Joe, and Purple Valkyrie will all be on. And we are going to do a special edition of Let's Talk, MB Geeks Let's Talk, Star Trek 10 Forward Roundtable. It's going to be the women of Star Trek. So basically, for this one, I'm going to introduce everyone. I'm going to I'm going to stay where the conversation is, and I'm going to be pretty much muted for most of it, unless I need to come in for a reason. But I figured if we're going to talk great women of Star Trek, I want to get great geek women to come in to talk about it.
Here.
So we hope you all can come Monday. We hope you all come Saturday. And with that, peace and long life.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah. Have a good one, man. All right. So yeah, Star Trek Into Darkness is delightful. I blacked out most of it, so that's why I'm kind of like kicking myself for not having watched it. But I will never get over the fact that they cured death at the end of that movie. That's my big thing.
Yeah, and you know, there is such a thing as suspension of disbelief, but that's stretching it way too far, and that's the truth. They stretch it entirely too far and everything in terms of what they did Into Darkness. The other thing that this was a beef of mine. Now, I like the character of Khan. I like Benedict Cumberbatch. He has become a favorite actor of mine, truly. But and even his interpretation of Khan wasn't a bad one. It was a good interpretation of Khan. But my biggest beef with Into Darkness was Spock and Khan getting into a fist fight, and that's the big.
I forgot about that. Oh my god!
They get into a fist fight on top of a transport on Earth, and everything, and that's the big resolution of the conflict and everything. And they take Khan's blood to cure Kirk when Kirk.
Dead, guys.
I'm just. That was for me. That was such a ripoff of Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, they ripped it off too much, I think, was a huge problem for me,
Yeah,
too.
that I think for a lot of people that was the big beef with
Mhm.
Into Darkness. It seemed like it was too much of a copy in some instances with Into Darkness was too much of a copy of Wrath of Khan, which for a lot of people, Trekkies and just people who love good cinema in general, can regard as probably one of the best movies ever made. I
Mhm.
mean,
Agreed.
I've made this comment before, and I'll say it here. If it had not been for Wrath of Khan, Star Trek, in a lot of ways, would be dead in the water.
Mhm. No, because
No,
motion picture was not well received, and still to this
no,
day isn't that well received.
no.
Um,
If Wrath of Khan had not hit the way it hit, we would have not gotten the rest of the TOS movies. We would have not gotten Next Generation. We would have not gotten Deep Space Nine or anything else. The entire franchise hinged quite literally on this one movie,
mhm.
and it delivered in
Mhm.
spades.
Oh, yeah.
And for them to rip off Wrath of Khan as much as they did for Into Darkness was a disservice, not just to Wrath of Khan, but honestly, because there are lots of good parts in Into Darkness that people like. This whole discussion about should the Federation be militarized and everything, and they build that advanced warship and everything. I think it's called the Vengeance or something like that.
Something
Everything,
like that.
yeah. And I'll say
Mhm.
this: the design of that ship, I love.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I thought that was a beautiful
I
ship,
love the
yeah.
design. I love the
Mhm.
design of that ship. The warship that the Pierre Weller's character and everything
Mhm.
was in command of. I mean, that was a beast of a ship. I loved it.
Let's see if I can.
And honestly, this is something that that a lot of Trek people and non-Trek people have debated. Should the Federation have a branch of its Starfleet that is militarized? And obviously, we see in response to the Borg and TNG, they do. They do
Mhm.
start to build a military branch or a military fleet because you get the Defiant, you get the Prometheus, you get several other. You get the Voyager because the Voyager was actually part of that fleet. It was a smaller, more nimble, more adaptable ship and everything, and it was a response to the Borg threat. So they do answer that question in a way and everything in Star Trek lore, but I think that they explore it further in this movie was a good move. I thought it was an interesting dilemma and everything. It was interesting to debate to have, and the fact that they ripped so much of Wrath of Khan off for this film really marred that discussion.
Yeah, I can't remember. I want to say that I saw Wrath of Khan before I saw this movie.
Mhm.
Because I do remember having a sort of reaction because I saw it in theaters. I saw Into Darkness in the theaters. I do remember having a sort of reaction of my reaction is like literally like when Zachary Quinto's Spock starts did the con scream. I was like, ooh, that's a bad choice. You never should have done that.
Mhm.
You never should have done. He doesn't have you can't remake that. That's not something you will never capture that again, you know. And it's and also Zachary Quinto just doesn't have the vocal range to be able to make that, you know. You put those two scenes side by side and you're just like,
Well, yeah, and here's the
no.
thing. They rip off an iconic scene from, well, let's just be candid. The death scene of Spock in Star Trek 2 and everything is probably one of the most iconic scenes, not to mention one of the most iconic death scenes in cinema.
Oh yeah.
Because for a lot of people,
Here we
Trekkies
go.
in particular,
I wanted to
that scene has got to be ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's model.
I think that was the USS Vengeance. Yeah, that
Yep.
was the ship from Into Darkness.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love the
I love
design.
this is good.
Yeah, that was
Everything
that to me I think has got to be one of my all-time favorite ship designs from Star Trek. Not to mention just sci-fi ships in general. That is, I could see that thing going up against the scimitar from Nemesis. I could actually see that thing holding its own.
Like this.
I mean,
yeah, and honestly, it makes sense just in general for them to, especially after everything that happened in '09. It's like in the future they have this technology, and a mining ship came back and kicked our asses. Okay.
Yep.
So they'd want to up it. They'd want to prepare. I can see that is a natural escalation. And of course, with Khan coming, is like that makes all of this makes sense. And this thing is, in my opinion, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I agree.
Even go ahead.
No, it's all right. The thing for me about the scene between Kirk and Spock, both in Wrath of Khan and Into Darkness, with Wrath of Khan, you had emotional weight for the simple fact that you had the previous movie, regardless of how good or bad it was, but not only that, you had all of the TOS episodes and everything where you had gotten to know these characters, and a lot of people have said, and this is something I agree with as well, you got further character development in the TOS movies. But Spock was a very well appreciated, almost a loved character for people of the Trekkies. And the way he died was so noble and so beautiful, even though he's an alien. He embodies the best of humanity.
It was so human. So human.
Yeah, and the thing you have to remember is Spock, the character Spock, is half human. His mother was human.
Yes.
So, the thing for me is you don't have that emotional weight in Into Darkness. You've had one movie with Kirk and it did. It felt incredibly cheap and everything. And I'll say this: it almost felt as cheap. I might catch flack. I don't care. It felt as cheap as when Ben killed Han in Force Awakens.
No, I agree. Yeah,
I mean,
was kind of like
no,
that was the reaction.
I don't want to get off on a big Force Awakens thing, but honestly. That Harrison Ford wanted out. I get it. He had wanted out since Return of the Jedi. I get it. That's fine. That's fair.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a noble death. It didn't have weight. We knew nothing about the relationship between Han and Ben, his son. We knew nothing. And it felt empty. They killed him off just for the sake of killing him off because I want people.
Yeah. So it's Wrath of Khan, so of course they're going to have to have that scene if they're going to go that far.
Yeah.
At least that's what they thought. Which again, it kind of brings into I don't think you should have brought Khan into at least the second one. This thing could have gone on for a while. Second one, it's like it even so okay for me, and by the way, totally okay. It's like Captain Trek. No, it's like it doesn't even reach 2009 doesn't touch the original series. No. I take it on an objective standpoint. It's kind of like there's a lot of problems with it, but I am soft on it because it is my introduction. If I'm talking objectively, I would be having a different discussion, but I am allowing, an emotional connection to come into this because we're talking about what we appreciated. We're talking about reimagining what could have happened versus what they should have. Into Darkness never should have had Khan. I understand the lens flares were awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, and hey, you know what, Captain Trek? I can understand Captain Trek is hardcore Star Trek. He's a Trekkie. He's a hardcore Trekkie, and I respect that. He's as hardcore of a Trekkie as I am a hardcore of a Star Wars fan.
Yep.
So I can understand that. And Kronos, I don't know the exact reason why there is a void there around the center of the saucer section.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. But this is just a hypothetical guess, and that's all it is. My guess is maybe that's a way of them isolating damage to the bridge, because I'm assuming that section right there is where the bridge is at.
Oh, you're right. That makes sense.
So maybe even it's just looking at the design of the Vengeance. Maybe it's almost a precursor to a separated saucer section, like you have in TNG. Maybe there's a way that the saucer detaches somehow or another. I mean, I know obviously this is a pure warship.
Yeah.
And everything. But that's a hypothetical guess on my end. Maybe it's a way to keep the bridge from getting damaged from the rest of the ship, or maybe it's a precursor design for a separating saucer section for this particular model. That's just, like I said, it's a theory. It's a guess.
No, that makes total sense, because to jump to that would be a bit weird. But this does make sense to have it separated. For me, it's like I went from watching the 2009 movie, and if I'm remembering this correctly, I saw Wrath of Khan next, because when my dad showed it to me, I like watching things in order, and he was like, "Don't bother. No, we're not going to watch one." And I didn't understand it obviously until I'd watched it later. But Wrath of Khan was the next movie I saw. So even then, I was crying, sobbing my heart out at Spock's death scene, and it was the second thing in Star Trek I had ever seen in my entire life, and I was sobbing. So the weight isn't just with TOS. That's what I'm saying, is the weight isn't just like if you saw TOS, it's even more,
Yes.
But I was crying because the movie set up an emotional connection, an emotional, it set up these characters to care about each other during that whole thing. The character development is absolutely phenomenal, to the point that even someone like me who didn't even know back then that it was a TV series, I was emotionally involved to the point to tears. And then going into Darkness, it's like, and none of it felt hollow. It's not the same. It's like something's wrong here. Like you did it. Something's wrong. I can't figure out what's wrong, but something's wrong. It's like you're missing something. It's like there's I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Well, unfortunately, Iris, I'm going to have to go because I've got to stream in a few hours and I've still got to fix dinner myself. So, but I have really enjoyed this. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll need to do this again sometime. I'll need to have you over on my channel. I've been over here on yours. You need to come over and pay a visit to my channel. So,
all right, fair enough. I will come visit one day.
Yeah,
actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to probably make this a two-parter so that I can actually watch Into Darkness and then watch Beyond and then revisit this. So I'm actually going to split this stream into two parts. So you want to go ahead and plug your channel and then I'll sign off?
Yeah. I'll make it quick. You can find me under the Ambassador on my channel, The Ambassador. Cover pop culture, modern and retro. Most everybody in the chat knows me. But for those that catch this on the replay, this has been a blast. I appreciate Eris having me on. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking Trek, even though I am not a Trekkie. I love good sci-fi, and Trek is good sci-fi, except when it isn't. Later this evening on my channel, everything, the Ambassadorial Wing, we're going to be talking about a great piece of pop culture from the 1980s. We're going to be talking about G.I. Joe and Transformers and everything that it entails, so be sure to tune in for that. And then, of course, next week, I'm going to be doing my afternoons of the Ambassador with the Ambassador and everything on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then next Friday, or this coming Friday, actually, I'm going to be having my monthly watch party, and we're going to be doing a watch party for Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So be sure to tune in for that. So, and everybody in the chat, it was great to see you. This has been a lot of fun, and y'all have a great day. And I'll see you later tonight. Until next time, this is the Ambassador. You too. This is Ambassador signing off.
All right, guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap it up. And like I said, I'm gonna split this into 2 parts. Because A, I didn't do my homework, and B, because my guests are gone. So, and I want to really go into Darkness. With Wrath of Khan being my favorite movie, I actually want to watch both of them. But busy week and get into it. But we will continue this a day in the future. I'm not sure when. With next week, because I am going to be on NB Geeks Star Trek panel. I'm not sure if I'm going to want to talk about Star Trek immediately afterwards. There are a couple streams that are coming up that's like topic wise that I'm going to want to do. And there's one that I might do next week, but considering I'm not 100%, I haven't talked to the people involved that I want involved in the stream, so I'm not going to like announce it here, because that would be like really awkward and pressuring and just awkward. Yeah, also it'd be really awkward in general. So I hope you all have a good Saturday, and yeah, go ahead and hit the ambassador tonight. With him talking about G.I. Joe and Transformers. I might be in the chat, I might not. I have things to do this evening, but yes, you're one of the people I need to talk about. I need to talk to. So, in regards to the stream, possibly next week. That wasn't supposed to sound super menacing. I realize that now that kind of came off like whatever. Anyway, I hope you all have a good one. Good rest of y'all evening. Maybe see y'all tonight. Maybe see y'all. Oh, Laurina Creole. Goddamn. She has her little celebration, her 400 celebration stream tomorrow night. I think 8 p.m. Central. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, she had just had a really amazing stream with Loki on Friday, and so you need to throw out links. Okay, fine, all right. Purple, would you do me a favor? That was my wrench. Will you please throw out the links to both MB Geek and Ambassador's channel? Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Both are in the description. Hopefully, I had to change my description because I didn't know if the Ambassador was going to show up or not. So hopefully they're both in there. But I'd appreciate that. Yes, thank you, Kratos. Thank you. I occasionally I do forget about that portion of this, having my guests on and then having their links thrown out. But yeah, thank y'all all for coming. I really appreciate it. Y'all spending a little bit of time talking about Star Trek with me. Thank you, Kronos and Lady Mist and Purple, Captain Trek and Loki. Let me scroll up. Mountains of Elysium. Q. Hello, number 1. Thank you for coming. I know. I realize I just said hello. I don't know. Shut up. Still could be sass. Darth Haster, thank you for coming as well. And Collaborating Times, I appreciate that. Rambling Canuck came in, and Mr. Hyde's podcast. Let's see. Sammy was here. I think she lurked. She kind of rode off and lurked. Jeff B, thank you for coming as well. Trying to see if there's anyone else I forgot. I'm really sorry. Oh, Josh and Rebecca, thank you. Oh, and happy anniversary to both of y'all. And, Spike in the Madness, thank you for coming as well. Robert Pearson, the usual crew. And Squirrel. No, not Squirrel. I'm saying bye to people. That's not Squirrel. God damn it. Oh, and yes, you, Jedi Bill. I believe you have a Twilight Saga that you're going to be watching, and I've drugged myself into watching as well. So delightful. Y'all look for that. Y'all look for those streams coming up. Yeah, really. God damn it. I'm gonna have to watch those, and those are gonna be fun. But thank you for coming, Jedi Bill. I appreciate it. La, 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 la. Yep. Twilight for Bill. Exactly. Oh, and here are my two guest channels. Like I said, they're in the description, and labeled and everything. So it should be all nice, neat, and organized on there. And I did have to change it a little bit. So like if you don't see the ambassador, just like refresh and it should be fine. But yes, did my two. Ah yes, and karaoke stream tonight for Rambling Canuck at 9 p.m. If y'all decide y'all want to sing. I will not be singing. Annually. Oh, okay. All right. So we're gonna make them do it once a year. Y'all still haven't managed to get that done for Bird of Prey. So good luck convincing him to do that. You know, y'all get on that. Y'all need to get on Bird of Prey doing Crystal Skull annually. But thank y'all. Really appreciate it for y'all coming. And I will see y'all possibly tonight, possibly tomorrow. And if not on either one of those, Monday morning on Loki's channel at 8 a.m. So, bye.